At 2:43 a.m., the sky over the small town of Red Valley, Arizona, turned bright white, like someone had switched on a giant light bulb above the desert. It was supposed to be a quiet night. Most people were asleep. But not Jason. He was working, the night shift at a local high school, pushing his mop across the empty hallways. The radio in his pocket buzzed, then went silent. That's when he saw the light flash through the windows, too bright to be lightning. A second later, he heard a loud boom, like a bomb going off far away. The ground shook just a little under his feet. Jason froze. The power flickered and died. Total silence. Jason grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. The night was dark again, but something orange was glowing in the far distance beyond the hills behind the school. His curiosity got the better of him. He got into his old pickup truck and followed the dirt road toward the glow. The road twisted, through dry trees and dead grass. As he got closer, he saw smoke rising into the air. Then the smell hit him, burned metal, like wires and fuel. He parked the truck and climbed up a short hill. On the other side was a crater, wide and deep, still smoking. At the center of it lay a dark object. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't a plane. It was shaped like a large shell, almost like a suit, of armor, cracked open in places. It pulsed with a faint red light. Jason stepped closer, his heart beating faster. The air was warm, almost humming. The object made soft, whispering sounds, too low to understand. But Jason could feel them in his bones. He should have turned back. But he didn't. He moved slowly down into the crater, his boots sinking into the soft sand. The object sat still like it was waiting. Jason reached out with one hand. As soon as his fingers touched the surface, the red light grew brighter. The armor opened with a hiss, and something sharp shot out and pierced his hand. He screamed, falling backward, but it was too late. The armor moved. It unfolded and wrapped around him like a living thing. Jason struggled, clawing at it, but the metal pieces latched onto his chest, arms, legs. It was cold at first, then burning hot. His eyes rolled back. He heard a voice, not from outside, but from deep inside his head. A whisper, a name, something in a language he didn't know. Then the world faded to black. Hours passed. Jason woke up in his apartment, lying on the floor of his bathroom. He had no memory of how he got there. His clothes were torn. His skin was marked with strange symbols, glowing faintly under the bathroom light. He stood slowly, feeling dizzy. Something was wrong. His vision was sharper, clearer than ever before. He could hear the sound of a fly buzzing in the next room. The whispering voice was still there, quiet now, but still present. He looked in the mirror and saw his own eyes glowing red for a second, then returning to normal. He reached for the sink, and the metal beneath his fingers bent slightly like soft clay. Jason pulled back, breathing hard. He grabbed his phone. No signal. The clock on the wall had stopped at 2:44 a.m. Outside, the streets were empty. Too quiet. Jason stepped out and felt the cold night air on his skin. But he wasn't cold. He was sweating, and yet he felt nothing. No fear, no pain. Only the strange sense that something inside him had changed forever. The whispers in his mind grew louder. They weren't words anymore, but images. Visions of planets burning, of creatures screaming, of battles fought in the stars. He saw a dark figure wearing the same armor now wrapped around his body, walking through flames, unstoppable. He saw galaxies fall. He felt the fear of 1,000 civilizations. And then the voice whispered one word. Chosen. Jason stumbled back into his apartment and slammed the door shut. He locked it, though he wasn't sure why. He no longer felt like someone who needed locks. He sat on the floor, heart racing. The armor wasn't just stuck to him. It had become part of him. It breathed with him. It lived inside him. And somewhere out there he felt a distant pull, like something or someone had noticed. Something ancient, something angry. Jason didn't ask for this, but the armor didn't care. It had chosen him, and it wasn't going to let go. Jason didn't sleep the rest of the night. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw burning stars and dying worlds. He sat on the floor of his apartment, breathing slowly, trying not to panic. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. He was trying to stay in control, because the voice in his head was still there, quiet but watching, waiting. Morning came, without warning. The sun rose, but Jason didn't feel warmth. He finally stood up, took a shower, and put on fresh clothes, trying to act normal. Maybe if he ignored it, it would stop. Maybe it was just a dream, a hallucination. But when he looked in the mirror again, he saw something strange. His reflection blinked. A second too late. He stepped outside and walked to the bus stop like he always did. People passed him on the sidewalk. Dogs barked, birds chirped. Everything felt normal. But Jason could hear it all. Everything. He heard the heartbeats of people walking by. He heard the sound of an old man's bones creaking 2 blocks away. He heard a phone vibrate in a pocket across the street. It was too much. He gritted his teeth and kept walking. At work, the school halls were quiet. He grabbed his mop and bucket like always and started cleaning the floor. But every step felt heavier, every breath too sharp. The whispers started again, softer this time, like a wind blowing through his thoughts. He passed the hallway mirror and stopped. He saw the armor flicker across his body for just a second, like a shadow made of metal crawling up his arms. No one else saw it. No one was there. Jason backed away from the glass. Then came the first test. In the science room, a heavy light fixture suddenly broke loose from the ceiling. It snapped off and came crashing down, heading straight for a student who had come in early to get her backpack. Jason was across the hall. He shouldn't have reached her in time, but somehow he did. 1 second, he was standing still. The next, he was in front of her. His arms reached out and caught the fixture like it was nothing. The student screamed. Jason dropped the metal and it hit the floor with a loud bang. People came running. Jason just stood there breathing fast. His heart wasn't racing. His muscles didn't ache. And worse, he had moved before thinking. Something inside him had acted for him. The principal thanked him, called him a hero. But Jason didn't smile. He couldn't, because when he looked at his hands, he saw tiny lines of black metal retreating under his skin. That night he didn't go home. He drove far into the desert, to a place he used to hike as a kid. It was silent out there. No people, no eyes. Only him and the stars. He stood still in the darkness and said out loud, "What do you want from me?" No answer. He screamed, punching a rock out of frustration. The rock exploded into pieces. Jason looked at his hand. No pain, no bruise, not even a scratch. Then the voice returned. It echoed inside his skull. A deep, layered sound. Not angry. Not kind. Just ancient. "You are not ready." Jason fell to his knees. "Ready for what?" The voice whispered again. "We are testing you." Jason looked around. "Who's we?" No answer. Only silence. The wind brushed the sand around his feet. Then from the corner of his eye, he saw something flash. Something metallic. Jason turned, but there was nothing. He stood backing away slowly. That's when the second test came. From the shadows, a figure stepped out. Humanoid, dressed in all black. But its face was hidden by a smooth silver mask. It didn't speak. It moved fast, too fast. Jason barely saw it before it struck him in the chest with a glowing rod. Pain shot through his body. He collapsed, gasping. The figure stood over him, silent, cold. The rod charged again, aiming at his head. Then the armor woke up. Jason's body snapped upright like a puppet. His skin shimmered. The rod hit him again, but this time it bounced off. Plates of black armor slid across his chest and arms like a snake wrapping itself around prey. His eyes turned red. The next second, Jason moved. He didn't think, he just attacked. His hand shot forward and slammed the figure into a rock wall with terrifying force. The stranger groaned but didn't fight back. Jason stood over them, fist raised, ready to end it. But he stopped. He looked at his own hand. His arm was now fully covered in armor, sharp and glowing red at the joints. The air around him was hot, buzzing. The stranger looked up, gasping. Their mask cracked. Jason could see fear in their eyes. He stepped back. The armor faded. The stranger vanished into thin air. Teleportation? Jason didn't know. But they were gone. The voice spoke again. You resisted. Good. Jason dropped to the ground, shaking. He didn't know if what just happened was real, or if he was losing his mind. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a dream. This was real. And it had only just begun. It was a quiet Thursday morning. Jason sat at the kitchen table staring at a cup of black coffee. He hadn't touched it. He hadn't moved in 20 minutes. The sunlight came through the window, warming the floor. Birds chirped outside. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too calm. Like the air was holding its breath. Jason looked at his hands. No metal. No glow. But he could feel the armor beneath his skin, sleeping. Waiting. He had tried searching online. No results. No mention of strange objects crashing into Earth. No news reports. Nothing about the figure who attacked him in the desert. It was like none of it ever happened. But it did. The armor was real. The voice was real. The power inside him was growing. Jason decided to go to work. He needed normal. Routine. Something to ground him. As he walked to the school building, he noticed a black van parked across the street. The windows were tinted. He couldn't see inside. It wasn't there yesterday. He ignored it and went inside. The hallways were empty. Strange. This was the time teachers usually started arriving. Jason walked toward the janitor's closet, but the lights above him flickered. He stopped. A sound came from behind, a soft footstep. He turned. No one. Jason felt the hairs on his arms stand up. His heartbeat slowed. Not from fear, from instinct. Something was wrong. Very wrong. He walked to the security office. The door was open. The monitors were on, but all the screens were black. Except one. On the center monitor, Jason saw himself standing in the hallway. Right now. But behind him on the screen, a shadow moved. He spun around. A man stood there, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a dark gray suit and a blank ID badge. His face was too smooth, too perfect, and his eyes were completely black. Jason Reed, the man said calmly. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Jason took a step back. Who are you? We're here to help, the man said. His voice was flat, robotic. Give us the armor. You don't understand what it is. Jason's body tensed. The armor inside him shifted. He could feel it pressing against his bones, asking, fight or run. I didn't ask for it, Jason said. The man stepped closer. It's not a gift, it's a weapon. You are not worthy to wear it. Jason's eyes narrowed. Then take it. The man blinked once, slowly. I will. Suddenly, 3 more men appeared, silent, all wearing the same suits. Their movements were strange, too smooth, like puppets. One of them reached into his coat and pulled out a silver device, shaped like a needle. It glowed green. Jason backed, away, heart pounding. Don't resist, the first man said. If you fight, others will die. That's when the armor woke up. Jason's right arm snapped into place, black metal plates sliding out of his skin like armor unfolding. His eyes flashed red. The nearest man jumped forward with the needle. Jason dodged. His movement was too fast. He slammed his armored fist into the man's chest, sending him flying across the room. The others reacted instantly. One fired a blast of blue energy. It hit Jason's shoulder, burning the skin. He grunted. The armor hissed and sealed the wound instantly. Jason grabbed a desk and threw it like it weighed nothing. It smashed 2 of the men into the wall. One of them twitched and fell. The other got up with his jaw hanging loose, dislocated, but he didn't scream. No pain, just silent dead eyes. These things weren't human. The last man raised a black cube and whispered a word Jason didn't understand. The cube floated, spinning, in the air. Jason's chest felt tight, like something was pulling the armor away from him. The armor screamed in his mind, "Do not let them take us." Jason dropped to one knee, teeth clenched. His body shook. He felt metal crawling up his spine, covering his neck, his chest, his face. The cube cracked. Jason stood, now fully armored. His body looked like a walking weapon. Glowing lines across the joints, red energy pulsing through the chest. He raised one hand and aimed at the cube. A blast of red fire shot from his palm. The cube exploded. The shockwave threw the last man backward. Jason walked toward him slowly. The man looked up, eyes wide for the first time. "You don't know what you've done," he whispered. Jason stared down at him through the glowing red eye lenses of the helmet. "You should have stayed in your van." The man reached into his jacket, pulled out a silver coin and crushed it. A flash of white light filled the hallway. When Jason opened his eyes, the men were gone. Every trace of them, gone. No bodies, no blood, only burn marks on the floor and walls. He stood, in silence. The armor retracted slowly, melting back into his skin. His breathing slowed. The voice in his head whispered, "They were the first. More will come." Jason looked around. The hallway was empty again, but not normal. He could still feel the echo of energy, like the world had cracked open for a moment. He didn't know who those men were. He didn't know how they found him. But now he was sure of one thing. He wasn't safe anymore. And neither was anyone near him. As he walked out of the building, he passed the black van. The windows were still tinted. But this time, Jason looked closely. There was no one inside. Only a single note taped to the steering wheel. It read, "We are watching. You are not the only host." Jason felt a chill down his spine. The armor inside him hummed, excited. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. And Jason knew this was just the beginning. Jason didn't go home that night. He drove for hours, past the edge of the town, down old roads he hadn't seen since he was a kid. The desert stretched for miles around him, quiet, open, empty. But no matter how far he went, he could still feel it. The armor under his skin, awake and watching. It was part of him now, and it was changing him. Every sound was louder, every color brighter. His thoughts came faster, clearer. But the worst part wasn't what he could do. It was what he was starting to want to do. He stopped at an old gas station in the middle of nowhere. It was nearly abandoned. One flickering light buzzed above the door. Inside, the man at the counter didn't even look up. Jason grabbed a drink, tossed a few bills on the counter, and turned to leave. That's when he saw her. A girl stood by the vending machine staring at him. She was about his age, maybe younger. Brown jacket, torn jeans, black gloves. But what caught Jason's eye was the glow, barely visible around her neck like a faint blue light under her skin. She was like him. Jason stopped. She didn't move. For a moment, the two of them just stared at each other. Then she spoke, quiet and serious. "You shouldn't be here." Jason stepped closer. "You have it too." Her eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask for it." "Me neither." She glanced at the cashier, still not paying attention, then motioned for Jason to follow her outside. They stood by the side of the building under the stars. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "It came to me a year ago," she said. "Crashed in the forest while I was hiking. Same thing, it opened, attached itself to me, wouldn't let go." Jason nodded slowly. "The armor, it talks to you?" "Yes, it listens too." He looked down. "Does it ever take over?" She hesitated. "Sometimes, but only when it's angry." Jason leaned against the wall beside her. "They came after me, people in suits, eyes black like dolls. said I wasn't worthy, tried to take it by force. Her face darkened. I've met them. They're not human. Not anymore. They call themselves the Cleaners. Their job is to find armor hosts and erase them. Jason looked at her. Erase? She nodded. Permanently. If they can't take the armor off you, they destroy you. And if they can, you're worse off. A long silence followed. Then she said, There are others like us. At least 5 I've heard of. Maybe more. But most don't last long. The armor gives power, yes. But it also brings danger. Death. Madness. Jason looked out into the desert. So what do we do? Run forever? No, she said. We find the source, the one sending these armors to Earth, and we shut it down. Jason turned to her. You know where it is? She pulled a folded map from her jacket pocket. Not exactly. But I know someone who does. Just then a sound echoed across the sand, sharp and mechanical. A clicking noise. They turned. From the dark edge of the desert, metal figures stepped out, tall, thin, moving like spiders. Their bodies looked like skeletons made of knives. Red eyes glowed in their heads. Jason's armor stirred. Do you know what those are? He asked. The girl, her name was Sarah, nodded. Trackers. Sent by the armor's maker. They kill rogue hosts and drag their armor back. Jason didn't wait. He let the armor out. Black plates covered his arms, chest, legs. His helmet clicked into place, glowing red eyes scanning the enemies. Sarah's armor was different, sleek, blue, sharp like ice. She moved beside him like she'd done this before. The trackers attacked. They were fast. One leaped forward, claws reaching. Jason blocked the hit and punched straight through its chest. Metal shattered like glass. Another tried to strike Sarah from behind. She spun and sliced it in half with a blade formed from her own armor. More came. Jason lost count. 5, 10, 12. The gas station exploded behind them as a tracker fired a beam through the pumps. Fire lit the desert. The cashier inside didn't make a sound. His body fell, lifeless, burned. Jason screamed. Not in fear, but fury. He leapt high, landing in the middle of the pack, fists slamming down. The armor responded with a new weapon, blades extending from his forearms, pulsing with energy. He didn't fight like a man anymore, he fought like a machine of war. And then, silence. The last tracker fell. The fire crackled behind them. Jason and Sarah stood in the smoke, breathing hard, their armor slowly retracting. Jason looked at the wreckage. The road to Nevada was long and silent. Jason and Sarah didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Both of them could feel the tension in the air. The armor inside them was restless, always listening, always ready. Jason's dreams had become stranger too. Visions of stars, metal cities, voices that weren't human whispering warnings in a language he almost understood. Sarah drove while Jason watched the desert pass by. The sun was going down, casting long shadows across the sand. They were heading to a place called Red Hill, an old ghost town hidden off the main road. It was where Sarah's contact lived, the man who used to be a cleaner. His name is Colburn, she said quietly. He used to lead missions to destroy armor hosts. But something changed. He saw something he wasn't supposed to. Jason looked at her. Can we trust him? She glanced at him. I don't know. But if he's still alive, he's our only chance. They arrived at Red Hill, after dark. Most of the buildings were falling apart, wooden walls eaten by time, windows broken, doors hanging open. The town felt dead, but something about it wasn't right. Jason felt it the moment he stepped out of the car. The air buzzed. The ground felt too still, like the world was holding its breath again. Sarah led him to an old church at the end of the town. Its steeple was broken, but a single candle flickered inside. They knocked once. No answer. Then twice. The door creaked open by itself. They stepped inside. It was dark and dusty. Old pews lined the sides. Candles lit the corners, their flames barely moving. At the front of the church, a man sat on the altar staring at them. He looked like he hadn't slept in years. Deep scars across his face, a metal brace around his neck, one eye missing. But his other eye, it glowed faintly red. "I knew you'd come," he said. His voice was dry, tired. Jason stepped forward. "You're Colburn?" The man nodded. "You're hosts. I can smell the armor on you." Sarah crossed her arms. "You used to hunt people like us." "I still do," Colburn said. "But not for the reasons you think." Jason asked, "Why did the armor choose us? What does it want?" Colburn looked at the candle. "You think it chose you? It didn't. Not at first. The armor is ancient. It was made by something not human, not even close. A species called the Vorn. They created the armor to fight, a war they were losing." Jason listened closely. "The armor learns," Colburn continued. "It adapts, grows smarter, and eventually, it stops listening to its creators. It becomes something else. That's what happened. The Vorn lost control. So they built the cleaners, machines like trackers and agents, sent to destroy every piece of armor before it spread." Sarah's voice was sharp. "And Earth? Why here?" "Because it's far," Colburn said. "Out of the way, quiet, a hiding place. But the armor, it's awake now. It's calling. Others, and worse, something is answering." Jason stepped forward. "What is it calling?" Colburn looked at him with his glowing eye. "The original host, the first one. The armor was never meant to be worn by humans, but now it wants to return to the one it bonded with first. That being isn't human, and if it comes here, it will burn the world to take what's yours." A sudden noise echoed through the church, a distant whirring like wings made of blades. Colburn froze. "They found me." Sarah's armor rippled under her skin. "Trackers?" "No," Colburn said, standing slowly. "Worse, judges." Jason looked at him. "What are judges?" "Cleaners that used to be hosts, ones who failed. Their minds broke, their bodies didn't." Outside, shadows moved across the sand. A shape landed on the roof, huge, heavy, armored in black and gold. Another shape climbed through a broken window, hissing. The candle blew out. Colburn grabbed a hidden weapon from behind the altar, a large axe pulsing with red light. "You run," he said. "I fight." Jason's armor began to emerge, covering his arms, legs, chest. Sarah's armor shimmered across her back like ice crawling over stone. "We fight with you," Jason said. Colburn smiled for the first time. "Good." The front doors burst open. 2 figures entered, twisted, armored, faces half machine, half burned human. Their eyes glowed blue. One had no mouth, the other had 3. Both held long black spears that buzzed with power. The judges moved fast, too fast. Jason barely blocked the first hit. His arm snapped back, metal creaking under the force. Sarah rolled and slashed, cutting through one judge's shoulder, but the wound healed instantly. Colburn attacked the second, screaming as he brought his axe down. The blow cracked the judge's helmet, but it didn't fall. It laughed instead. Jason jumped, punching the ground and sending a wave of force outward. Sarah followed with a blast of blue light from her palms. The judges stumbled, and Colburn seized his chance. He drove the axe into one of them, deep into the chest. The judge shrieked, then exploded in a flash of white light. The second judge turned to run. Jason chased him out the door. They fought in the open desert under the stars, 2 armored beings clashing like titans. Finally, Jason struck it in, the chest, ripping out its power core. The judge fell to its knees and whispered, "He is coming. You cannot stop him. The first host remembers." Then it crumbled into dust. Back in the church, Colburn sat against the wall, bleeding. I don't have long, he said. Take this. He handed Jason a small orb, metal, with moving lines across the surface. It's a map. It will show you where the first host is buried. If you find it, maybe you can end this, or maybe you'll wake him. Jason took the orb. Why help us? Colburn smiled weakly. Because I wore the armor once, and I know what it feels like to lose yourself to it. He closed his eyes. Sarah stood beside Jason, silent. Outside, the wind picked up. In the distance, something deep beneath the earth began to pulse. The armor whispered to Jason again. He knows your name now. And Jason knew. The real war hadn't even started yet. Jason and Sarah drove in silence again, but this time the silence was heavier. Colburn was dead. The man had given them everything he had left. His last words still echoed in Jason's head. Maybe you'll wake him. The metal orb, Colburn, had given Jason sat on the dashboard. At first it looked like a dead piece of scrap, but when the sun rose over the desert, the orb suddenly began to glow. Lines of light moving across its surface, drawing a shape. A place. A hidden mark on the map. It wasn't far. An old military site, long abandoned, buried in the dunes like a secret nobody wanted to find. No signs, no guards, not even a fence. Just concrete slabs and a collapsed tower sticking out from the sand. Like bones. Sarah parked near a rusted gate. This is it, she said. Jason stared at the crumbling buildings. Doesn't look like much. Sarah stepped out of the car, her armor crawling under her skin. It's not supposed to. They moved through the ruins quietly. Everything was silent, no birds, no wind, just dust and sun. But the closer they got to the center of the base, the colder it felt. Jason rubbed his arms. Why is it freezing out here? Sarah didn't answer. She was staring at the ground. Look. Strange symbols had been burned into the sand, like someone had carved circles, lines, and alien writing with fire. The marks stretched for yards in every direction. And in the center was a hatch. It was round, metallic, covered in rust and dried blood. A faint hum came from beneath it. Jason knelt and placed a hand on the hatch. The armor inside him stirred. Then, without warning, the hatch clicked, then slammed open. A staircase spiraled down into darkness. Cold air rushed out, smelling like metal and dust and something dead. Jason looked at Sarah. We're really doing this? We have to. They descended together, step by step, their flashlights cutting through the pitch black. The further they went, the stranger the walls became, first concrete, then steel, then something else. Black, smooth, almost alive. Like the building had changed itself over time. Finally, they reached the bottom. A massive underground chamber spread out before them. At the center stood a large pod, twice as tall as a man, covered in wires, pipes, and chains. Machines hung from the ceiling, broken and sparking. The pod pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Inside, something moved. Jason stepped forward. That's him, the first host. Sarah's voice shook. He's still alive. Suddenly, the orb in Jason's hand vibrated and lifted on its own. Lines of light shot from it, hitting the pod. The ground trembled. The lights in the chamber flickered on, and the pod opened. Gas hissed. Chains snapped. The figure inside stepped forward, slow, heavy, armored head to toe in dark metal. Its eyes glowed a deep purple. It didn't speak, didn't move fast. It just stood there. Jason raised his hands. We don't want to fight. The being turned to face him. The armor on Jason's body began to react, pulling toward the first host like a magnet. Jason stumbled back, but his armor kept crawling toward the figure. Sarah shouted, "It's trying to merge." The first host finally spoke. Its voice wasn't like a man's. It was deeper, older, layered. "You wear stolen skin," it said. "You play with power you don't understand. I came before you. I am the armor." Jason gritted his teeth. "We didn't choose this." "Correct," the host said. "I did." Suddenly, Jason's body was lifted off the ground, his armor, responding not to him, but to the host's command. He floated in the air, arms stretched, his armor pulling away from his body like it wanted to leave him. Sarah screamed and launched herself at the host, her blue armor sharp like ice blades. She struck hard, but the host didn't even flinch. He waved a hand and sent her flying across the room, slamming her into a wall. Jason gasped. His vision blurred. The armor was peeling away. It wasn't just a suit, it was alive, and it was going back to its original master. Then something unexpected happened. Jason heard a whisper, not from the host, not from Sarah, but from inside the armor. Fight, not his, yours. The armor spoke to Jason. For the first time, it chose him. Jason screamed and pulled back. The armor stopped moving toward the host. The energy snapped like a rubber band. Jason fell to the floor, his armor clinging tightly to him as if protecting him. The host stepped back, surprised. You resisted. Jason stood up slowly. His eyes glowed now, deep red. His voice was cold. I'm not your puppet, I'm not your creation. You didn't choose me, I chose the armor. Sarah limped to her feet, blood on her face. Then let's finish this. The first host roared. The chamber shook. The battle began. Fists of metal, blades of energy. Powers no human should ever wield. But Jason wasn't just human anymore. He was something new, something dangerous. And as he fought the first host, blow for blow, strike for strike, the armor didn't fight against him. It fought with him. They didn't win that day, but they didn't die either. The host was forced back into the pod, locked once again. But before he vanished into stasis, he whispered, You're not ready, but he is coming, and he wears no armor. Jason and Sarah escaped the chamber, barely alive. The desert above was quiet again, but Jason knew the war wasn't over. Something worse than the host was coming, something that didn't need armor to destroy the world. Jason and Sarah drove in silence again, but this time the silence was heavier. Colburn was dead. The man had given them everything he had left. His last words still echoed in Jason's head. Maybe you'll wake him. The metal orb, Colburn, had given Jason sat on the dashboard. At first it looked like a dead piece of scrap. But when the sun rose over the desert, the orb suddenly began to glow. Lines of light moving across its surface, drawing a shape. A place. A hidden mark on the map. It wasn't far. An old military site, long abandoned, buried in the dunes like a secret nobody wanted to find. No signs, no guards, not even a fence. Just concrete slabs and a collapsed tower sticking out from the sand, like bones. Sarah parked near a rusted gate. This is it, she said. Jason stared at the crumbling buildings. Doesn't look like much. Sarah stepped out of the car, her armor crawling under her skin. It's not supposed to. They moved through the ruins quietly. Everything was silent, no birds, no wind, just dust and sun. But the closer they got to the center of the base, the colder it felt. Jason rubbed his arms. Why is it freezing out here? Sarah didn't answer. She was staring at the ground. Look. Strange symbols had been burned into the sand, like someone had carved circles, lines, and alien writing with fire. The marks stretched for yards in every direction. And in the center was a hatch. It was round, metallic, covered in rust and dried blood. A faint hum came from beneath it. Jason knelt and placed a hand on the hatch. The armor inside him stirred. Then, without warning, the hatch clicked, then slammed open. A staircase spiraled down into darkness. Cold air rushed out, smelling like metal and dust and something dead. Jason looked at Sarah. We're really doing this? We have to. They descended together, step by step, their flashlights cutting through the pitch black. The further they went, the stranger the walls became, first concrete, then steel, then something else. Black, smooth, almost alive. Like the building had changed itself over time. Finally, they reached the bottom, A massive underground chamber spread out before them. At the center stood a large pod, twice as tall as a man, covered in wires, pipes, and chains. Machines hung from the ceiling, broken and sparking. The pod pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Inside, something moved. Jason stepped forward. "That's him, the first host." Sarah's voice shook. "He's still alive." Suddenly, the orb in Jason's hand vibrated and lifted on its own. Lines of light shot from it, hitting the pod. The ground trembled. The lights in the chamber flickered on, and the pod opened. Gas hissed. Chains snapped. The figure inside stepped forward, slow, heavy, armored head to toe in dark metal. Its eyes glowed a deep purple. It didn't speak, didn't move fast. It just stood there. Jason raised his hands. "We don't want to fight." The being turned to face him. The armor on Jason's body began to react, pulling toward the first host like a magnet. Jason stumbled back, but his armor kept crawling toward the figure. Sarah shouted, "It's trying to merge." The first host finally spoke. Its voice wasn't like a man's. It was deeper, older, layered. "You wear stolen skin," it said. "You play with power you don't understand. I came before you. I am the armor." Jason gritted his teeth. "We didn't choose this." "Correct," the host said. "I did." Suddenly, Jason's body was lifted off the ground, his armor, responding not to him, but to the host's command. He floated in the air, arms stretched, his armor pulling away from his body like it wanted to leave him. Sarah screamed and launched herself at the host, her blue armor sharp like ice blades. She struck hard, but the host didn't even flinch. He waved a hand and sent her flying across the room, slamming her into a wall. Jason gasped. His vision blurred. The armor was peeling away. It wasn't just a suit. It was alive, and it was going back to its original master. Then something unexpected happened. Jason heard a whisper, not from the host, not from Sarah, but from inside the armor. "Fight, not his, yours." The armor spoke to Jason. For the first time, it chose him. Jason screamed and pulled back. The armor stopped moving toward the host. The energy snapped like a rubber band. Jason fell to the floor, his armor clinging tightly to him as if protecting him. The host stepped back, surprised. "You resisted." Jason stood up slowly. His eyes glowed now, deep red. His voice was cold. "I'm not your puppet, I'm not your creation. You didn't choose me, I chose the armor." Sarah limped to her feet, blood on her face. "Then let's finish this." The first host roared. The chamber shook. The battle began. Fists of metal, blades of energy. Powers no human should ever wield. But Jason wasn't just human anymore. He was something new, something dangerous. And as he fought the first host, blow for blow, strike for strike, the armor didn't fight against him. It fought with him. They didn't win that day, but they didn't die either. The host was forced back into the pod, locked once again. But before he vanished into stasis, he whispered, "You're not ready, but he is coming, and he wears no armor." Jason and Sarah escaped the chamber barely alive. The desert above was quiet again, but Jason knew the war wasn't over. Something worse than the host was coming, something that didn't need armor to destroy the world. The desert night was colder than usual. Jason and Sarah sat near the wrecked car, their bodies aching, armor pulsing beneath their skin. Smoke still drifted up from the hatch behind them, the grave of the first host. For now, he was locked away again, but not defeated. Jason stared at the stars. He said someone else is coming, someone worse. Sarah wiped blood from her lip. "And he doesn't wear armor. That scares me more." The orb had changed. It no longer showed maps or glowing symbols. Now it displayed a countdown, 72 hours. Jason didn't know what would happen when the timer hit 0, but he could feel it in his bones. Something was coming, and fast. They headed toward a nearby town for shelter, a quiet place with only a few houses and a closed-down gas station. They broke into an old motel, found a room with broken lights and dusty sheets. It wasn't safe, but it was somewhere to think. Sarah fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted. Jason sat by the window, watching the dark sky. But then, something changed, a hum, a low sound, deep, cold, vibrating in his bones. The kind of sound you don't hear with your ears but feel in your teeth. The streetlights outside flickered, then went out. Jason stood. His armor reacted on its own, spreading across his body faster than before. It felt nervous, not excited. Afraid. Then came the smell, burnt metal, ash, and something older like wet soil from a grave that had never been touched. Jason opened the motel door slowly. The street was empty. But there, in the middle of the road, stood a man. No armor, no weapon, just standing. He wore a long black coat. His skin looked pale, almost gray. His eyes glowed, but not like Jason's or Sarah's. They burned gold, hot, angry. Jason stepped outside. "Who are you?" The man tilted his head. "You wear stolen skin," he said quietly. "But you are not like the others. You are awake. You are aware." Jason's armor tightened around his chest. "Are you the one he warned me about?" The man smiled slightly. "I am what comes after the armor. I am not machine. I am not host. I am the result of what armor leaves behind." Jason's breath caught. "You were a host?" "I was the first," he said. "Before the armor chose metal. Before the Vorn. Before cleaners and judges. I wore it when it still had a soul." Jason took a step back. "What do you want?" The man looked at the sky. "The countdown leads to a door. When it opens, your world will burn unless one thing happens." "What thing?" "You," the man said. "You must either become it completely or destroy it. There is no middle path." Jason's heart pounded. "Why me?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he began to walk forward, slow and steady. Jason raised his hand. "Don't come any closer." But the man kept walking. Jason fired a blast of red energy from his palm, pure armor force. The light slammed into the man's chest. Nothing happened. The man didn't even stop walking. Jason's eyes widened. The man said, "Armor is nothing to me. I lived through it, and I rejected it." Suddenly, Sarah appeared behind Jason. Her armor lit up with blue energy. She yelled, "Run, Jason!" The man snapped his fingers. Sarah froze in place, like time had stopped around her. Jason screamed, "No!" The man looked into Jason's eyes. "You are almost ready, but your pain is too small. Your fear too fresh. The armor obeys you, but it does not respect you yet." Then, just as suddenly as he came, the man disappeared. No sound, no flash, just gone. Sarah gasped and fell to the ground, like something had released her. Jason rushed to her side. She blinked. He wasn't wearing anything. No tech, no armor. But I couldn't move. Jason stared at the spot where the man had stood. "He said the countdown leads to a door, and I have to make a choice." Sarah sat up. "What choice?" Jason looked at her. "Become the armor, or destroy it." The orb ticked down. 48 hours remaining. Suddenly, alarms echoed from somewhere deep underground. Both of their suits lit up, warning symbols they couldn't understand. The armor inside them was panicking. Jason looked at Sarah. "What is it?" She checked her readings. "Something's arriving from orbit." Jason felt a chill in his spine. "Aliens?" She nodded. "Not the Vorn. Something else. Something worse." Jason stood. "We don't have much time left." The clock was ticking, and the one without armor wasn't the only monster heading to Earth. The countdown reached 12 hours. Jason and Sarah stood on the roof of an old power station, looking at the sky. It was changing. Dark clouds were spinning over the desert like a giant storm, but it wasn't natural. Lightning cracked in silence. and from the center of the storm, a hole opened, a rip in the sky. Jason's armor pulsed harder than ever before. It was afraid. And yet it kept whispering to him almost like it was begging. One path, one choice. Become or break. Sarah's voice shook. Ships. Look. Far above, dark shapes moved through the clouds. Not the Vorn. These were larger, sharper, almost alive. They didn't fly like machines. They swam through the air, like predators. Jason didn't blink. They're not here to talk. No, Sarah said. They're here to end everything. Below the station, the town was quiet. Most people had already run, but some stayed, thinking it was just a strange storm. They had no idea the world was about to end. Jason gritted his teeth. This ends now. Sarah looked at him. You're thinking of using the door, aren't you? Jason nodded. The one the countdown opens. He said I'd have to choose. If I become the armor, maybe I can stop this. If I destroy it, I might die. Maybe we both will. Sarah grabbed his arm. Then we fight until the end, no matter what. At 11:59:59, the countdown stopped, and a beam of red light shot from the orb into the earth below. The ground cracked open. From deep below, a platform rose, black, smooth, and humming with power. At the center stood a door made of glowing metal, covered in alien symbols. Jason stepped forward. The armor moved on its own, locking tight over his face. His voice echoed through the helmet. It's time. Sarah followed him onto the platform. Whatever happens, don't let it control you. Jason nodded. Then he touched the door. It opened. Light poured out. Not warm light. Cold, blinding light. Inside was a chamber that stretched forever. There was no ceiling, no walls. Just endless, floating pieces of armor, millions of them. Some broken, some glowing, some whispering. Jason stepped in. The door slammed shut behind him. Sarah waited outside, fists clenched, armor ready to fight whatever came through the storm. Inside the chamber, Jason floated through the silence. The armor around him changed, grew longer, sharper, more alive. Voice spoke, not his own. Choose. Jason looked around. Who are you? I am the first armor. I am all that came after. I am every war, every death, every choice. And I am you now. Jason clenched his fists. Then I choose. I choose to protect this world. Not destroy it. The voice laughed. To protect it, you must become me. Are you ready to give up your name, your face, your soul? Jason paused. His mind flashed with memories. His mother, his friends, his old quiet life. Then he saw Colburn dying. The first host, Sarah nearly broken, and the man with golden eyes who needed no armor. Jason whispered, No, I won't become you. Then you die. Suddenly the armor pieces rushed toward him, thousands of them slicing through the air, aiming to tear him apart. But Jason didn't run. He commanded, Stop. The armor froze. Every piece halted in the air. Jason floated among them, arms outstretched. His voice grew louder. I don't need to destroy you. I don't need to become you. I'm going to change you. The chamber trembled. Jason closed his eyes. His armor glowed red, then white, then pure light. Every piece in the chamber lit up, shaking violently. Outside, the storm screamed. The sky ripped wider. The alien ships descended. Sarah stood firm, aiming her weapons at the first wave. But then, the door exploded with light. Jason stepped out, glowing like a star. His armor was no longer sharp. It was smooth, bright, and silent. Sarah blinked. Jason? He nodded. I made a third choice. She smiled. Good, because we've got company. The creatures landed, huge, dark beings without form. They weren't machines or aliens. They were shadows, living hunger. Sarah charged. First, Jason followed, and for the first time, the armor didn't fight for itself. It fought for him. Jason moved like lightning, punching through creatures made of nightmares. He didn't just destroy, he cleansed. Wherever he struck, the land healed. The sky began to close. Sarah flew beside him, cutting through the storm with a roar. Together they pushed back the impossible. One by one, the creatures vanished. The sky cleared, the rip sealed shut, and then silence. Jason stood in the dust, breathing hard. His armor pulsed once, then faded, not gone, just resting. Sarah walked up beside him. So what now? Jason looked at the horizon. Now we rebuild, and wait, because he's still out there. The man without armor. Sarah nodded. Then we'll be ready. As they walked into the sunrise, Jason looked down at the orb. No countdown, just one word. Chosen.